Hello, everybody, bright and early. Welcome to Pie.
They don't know it's bright and early.
Well, they don't know. Yeah, wherever you are.
Yeah.
It might be bright and early.
It could be.
I'm Katie.
I'm Kurt.
And hi, honey.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
How'd you sleep?
That's
always the question.
I don't know anymore because I don't have my Aura ring. I got rid of my Aura ring because the information was not helping me. It was just telling me how much I didn't sleep, and I would get up and just be angry. So, I think I slept okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I had my Aura ring.
Yeah.
I did well.
Did you?
I'm a little obsessed with the Aura ring. Yeah. It tells me if I'm having a good day or not. So I can, if I'm not feeling quite rested, I just look at my
It would
info.
freak me out because at any point during the day, it would just start glowing red. And I didn't know what that meant.
You took that as something wrong.
I just had to take it off. This felt like I was being judged all day long.
Oh, honey, I'm sorry. Anyway, welcome to Pie. We're super, I'm very excited to have our guests on because we love to do a couple hang, and that's not often that happens.
No, we like to do that,
like.
but a lot of couples don't like to do it together. Because they like to talk smack.
This couple, I would guarantee they like to do it together.
Yeah, I think this couple, I think they're just always doing it.
They might be. Yeah, that would be my impression too.
I don't know what that means.
I kind of know them separately before they were a couple. Anyway, I don't want to get into all that. What I might know, what I might not.
Here's the great thing about our couple, other than their fantastic body of work.
I thought you were going to say fantastic bodies, which
we could say that too.
And fantastic bodies. I know nothing about them.
I know a little bit more only because I'm like a television addict. So I have watched both of them excel in great ways.
That I know. I mean personally.
Oh, personally. Oh, yeah.
That's what we do.
We're gonna find. Yeah, we don't really talk about work, you guys.
What does PIE stand for, Katie?
Oh, people, influences, and experiences.
That's what's happening right now.
I think we're bantering too. We've had a lot of coffee, so I think we should introduce them.
Go right ahead.
All right, I'm super thrilled to introduce our couple. It is Bradley Whitford and Amy Landecker. Yay! Look how cute they are. They're in bed.
They're in bed. That's so fantastic. I think we started something new.
Well, we actually started our entire podcast from bed. This was all about our pillow talk a little bit.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, we practiced, we rehearsed.
Yeah, we do this whether or not anybody is here.
Yeah, we do this.
This is what happens whether there's mics or it's just ridiculous conversation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're enough about us. We're so happy to see you guys. I see that you are. Where are you guys? Let us know.
We're in New York, and we had this really late graduation celebration at a bar on the Upper West Side with my stepdaughter and his daughter, and a lot of friends and family. And
they went late,
and we're so zonked. I said, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna this is just having breakfast with Katie and Kurt, by Zoom, we did these in the COVID days, right? You would have a meal by Zoom. So that's what we're just we're chill. We got our coffee. We're pretending nobody's listening or will ever hear this. And we're just chatting with you.
What we do here is we kind of dive into nurture versus nature. We kind of dive into a little bit of where y'all come from, and we love the couple dynamic and how you met and all those kinds of things rather than what you do. So let's begin. So
the thing about my work that
but let me tell you what I have coming up.
Yeah,
that'll segue into.
Yeah, we'll get there a little bit. We'll get there.
That'll segue into my traumatic childhood.
Okay, that's where we like to dig deep. Yes.
Yeah.
Where do you guys? Okay. Gee, there's two of them. How are we going to do?
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Amy, tell us a little bit about where you were born, and just give us the highlights a little bit.
I was born in Norristown, Pennsylvania, but I have no memory of it because my family, my dad and my mom, who were very young, they they eloped when they were 19 and had my sister. And then I came along when they were, I think, 21 or 22.
Amazing.
My dad went as
Really?
a radio disc jockey and immediately got a job in Pennsylvania when he was super young, and then got a job at WLS Radio in Chicago when I was 18 months old. So we moved to Chicago for that job, and that's where I remember growing up. Like that's all I remember is Chicago, and I lived there till my early 30s. So
like a morning DJ kind of thing, like a.
You go ahead.
He's
baby.
in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Museum.
Yeah, in the but he was a big deal.
Really
in Chicago,
really
big rock and roll
successful.
70s
What was
and 80s.
his name?
He's still alive. He's still on the air. He's on WGN. His name is John Records Landecker. That's actually his middle name.
His middle name was
WGN. I went to grad school in Northern Illinois. I remember listening to WGN.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on that station now at night, still on the air. And
That's
then
fantastic.
But he was never a morning jock. He was a nighttime jock.
So he's like a rock and roll aficionado.
Wow.
Oh, that's pretty cool, Amy. That's great.
He did like the first remote, like there was like the whole station moved to, this is pre-FM too. And the whole station moved to Great America, where you would do like, his show. Look at us now. We're just like,
right.
locked on our computer.
But that was like the superstation, right? Where they broadcast.
There was 40,000 people there to see him do his show
Remote.
It's really wild. It was fun. 70s, like all that rock and roll.
Did you go to the radio station and hang out?
All the time? Yeah, because my parents were divorced. So every, Wednesday after school and Friday after school, if it was his weekend, we had to go to the station from school, and we'd hang out until he was done, and then we'd go home. There was a Burger King downstairs. My mom was a vegetarian and didn't let us eat anything bad. We'd go visit Dad and go downstairs and get fries, burgers. He was like the good time. He probably wasn't
the buddy.
He's written a book about his life, so it's okay for me to say like he was a drug addict. He was a nice drug addict though. He wasn't abusive or anything, but he was very like, there's a lot of women, a lot of fast cars.
Rock and roll, baby.
Rock and roll, baby.
The 70s.
Wow,
man.
I'm getting a whole picture here.
Yeah. And then she got that again with me.
Yeah, and that's why I picked him. You guys, anyway, Katey, I sort of can't believe you haven't met my dad. He's by the way, you guys, you have no idea. Oh my God, he would lose his mind. He is obsessed with Sons of Anarchy. Obsessed.
Rock and roll guys like us.
He always comes to LA, and all my friends, everyone I know knows him and is like in love with him. He's the most charming.
He's the best.
But he's never met you guys.
He's going to want to interview you.
It's so interesting, Amy, because, my father was a director. And so I never really knew him until I would go to work with him. Like he was gone so much of the time. And I just thought he was kind of like a shadow, either happy or really mad, until I would go to work with him. And I was like, oh, this is why everybody likes my dad so much.
Opposite experience, though. My dad was like kind of a dick at work, and he was like the nicest guy. The sweetest. And then he'd go to work, and he was just like, I think he was probably doing too much blow or something, but he was just like edgy. So it's interesting. Although I still loved going to the radio station, but my dad never raised his voice to me and my sister ever.
Oh.
Was that just the intensity of the job, do you think? Because it's all live? Do you know what I mean? I would imagine it's a different,
And he's very demanding. He was a very, he takes it super seriously. It's not like a hobby. It is like.
He's still into it.
Yeah, he's still into it.
If he's been doing it since he was, 19, 20? That's unbelievable.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the deep personal question. Do you think that you've chosen a partner that's like your dad or not like your dad? What would you say?
How many partners have you had, first of all? What are we on, 3 or 4 here? What is this?
Or like.
How long is this show?
The married.
We're both in a second marriage.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
We actually, many people joke that my dad and Bradley are quite similar. In terms of maybe looks and sort of demeanor. Like if I make both of them, it's a little bit weird.
Yeah, it looks weird.
It looks weird.
Wow.
My dad's like my I probably like one of my favorite people to hang out with. So I think it makes
isn't that
sense.
nice?
They're both like easygoing. You know what I mean? Like I found a guy who like,
except when I'm doing the blow.
Yeah.
or maybe when you're at work, you're kind of a dick, but I don't think so. I've worked with you and I don't think so.
going at work too, right?
Yeah, I do like your deadpan of, yeah, it's a little weird. Right. It was just like,
when I met him, I was like, oh, hi. I'm fulfilling some sort of Freudian formula.
It's like, you're just like, oh, it all makes sense.
The other thing that I always say about that is like you both are in entertainment, but Katie's like the front facing, right? Like she's this, and we, being an actress, people wonder if I'm jealous that he's, more successful than me. And I'm like, no, I grew up like loving that my dad was well known. I get a real kick out of it. So
when I'm not working, she's very upset.
Same thing
pushes
here.
me in the
That's
audition.
exactly the same.
Get a little more famous because we're not getting enough attention. But if he like gets like people want to come up to him and stuff, like I still have that Freudian little girl who thinks it's cool that I know him.
I totally relate. I get that. So Bradley, let's hop over to you. Tell us a little bit about where you come from with the whole.
Let me do this. Let me speed through this. Interesting family layout. My parents were married in 1937.
Oh my God.
They had 3 kids, 10-year break. I make this joke. My brother, the mistake. I'm the mistake's friend. My mom was 46 when I was born.
Back then, that was
which
like
back then was
wow.
Really rare.
Yeah.
On the natch? On the natch.
Yeah.
On the natch. She claimed that
on the natch, I mean, like
without any fertility help.
Yeah.
It sounds like snatch.
I know.
Me.
I know,
like,
Amy.
You're drifting back to the vintage porn.
Yeah,
yes. She had, I got some, she claimed that she was always trying to have kids, but we think she may have sort of surprised my dad. Anyway, my dad, they came out of the Depression when they had the first 3 kids, mom felt like I think she felt like a shitty mother, overwhelmed.
How old was she when she had her first?
She was 22 when she had her first, and dad basically worked his way up at an insurance company. But by the time my brother and I came along later in their life, she had really chosen. She was really frustrated as a woman, and all of those frustrations were really kind of confirmed, for her in the 60s.
As we 100%.
Were growing up.
Right.
But she had it was odd because she sort of chose to have kids again. I had my parents, it wasn't without problems, but they basically loved each other. They knew I was the last kid.
Oh, you're the baby.
Yeah, and every room, it was a very lucky childhood. I felt they lit up every time I walked in the room, and my brother and I were really close, and they weren't terrified financially. I mean, they weren't, my dad just worked at an insurance company. But I was grew up in Philly and then Madison, Wisconsin.
Oh, very nice.
Heavenly
and
place.
I went to Madison for college, and so did his ex-wife. So
yeah,
I was going to say it's a similar Pennsylvania Midwest transference there.
Yeah. And I was born in Wisconsin, lived outside Philly from when I was 3 to when I was 13, then went back to Wisconsin. Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, I did not want to change the decal on the car.
So there's a huge age gap between you two and the older brother or sister. Yes.
I have a sister who's 85.
Oh, wow. That's kind of interesting.
My mom would be 110.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. That's wild.
Well, I grew up with all these nephews. I always joke I have menopausal nieces. They're now post-menopausal nieces. I have, nephews and nieces in their 50s. So I watched my older brothers and sisters sort of raise kids. And I think about it now. I know you're going to talk about like nature versus nurture, but I really got to see them raise kids. I got to see these things like how kids, what seem to be their flaws, become their greatest virtues.
It's awesome.
Right.
I got to see how inevitably your children, if as they become older teenagers, they need to break up with you. They need to betray you with their independence. It's almost like being in a relationship. If they don't have a reason, they have to create it. They have to lead.
Yes.
Absolutely. Especially the boys, I find. I don't know if you're...
Girls, too. She finds a reason every night to hate us.
Esme does?
Yeah.
Yeah, she's kind of... Even though, no, she adores us.
No, but you know what I mean.
But yeah, there's a
see-
pushback at 18. There's just
You
like...
see her looking for the
thing.
as you were talking, like the friction, like the thing I need to separate.
They can snort out hypocrisy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they celebrate it. Like,
Yes.
Here's my question though, Bradley, since you were because we have huge age gap, not huge, but 12-year age gap between our older two and the younger. Did you have a relationship with your older sibling as you were growing up, or was it, because what's the age, the gap is big.
That's big, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the gap is big. My sister was in college when I was born.
Wild. That's wild.
They all got married within a month in 1968, which was this kind of amazing thing. I mean, they were like
they all made it to 50 years together.
Yeah.
Too, before anyone passed away.
Yeah, that's 150 years of compromise.
All of his siblings are still alive.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But they were like a hybrid of a sibling and an aunt, you know.
Right. We just wonder sometimes because our youngest and our oldest, they're just now sort of getting to where they're getting along, but it was a struggle there.
It's almost with that big of a gap.
Yeah, they are more like
siblings were fully
formed adults.
Adults who could, process the fact that you were younger. Ours couldn't. Do you know what I mean?
I think with that distance, there's no competition. There's there was a lot more perspective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was an uncle at 10.
Oh, wow. It's kind of like the Van Pattens who are friends of ours. And they're like, everybody's a different, the older one is the younger one. This is the aunt. This is the aunt. I mean, it's a wacky family.
They're very confusing reunions.
I never meet his parents, which it sucks. And then his older siblings felt like when I would first hang out with them, like the parents.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're both on your second marriages, yes?
Yes. Yeah. We were divorced.
We were divorced. We were on a show, this show Transparent on Amazon. We were both on it. We were in different time zones. He was in the past and he was playing a homophobic cross-dresser.
That's correct.
I was playing a bisexual
basket case.
And he was dating someone at the time when the first year that we knew each other. I was in a relationship that was absurd and stupid. And I was crying often at work over stupid stuff that now absolutely baffles me. And so we didn't really.
I thought she was nuts, and she thought I was a jerk.
I thought he was kind of a dick. You know how like Bradley always gets cast to play like dicks because he's got like the way that he walks and the way that he talks and the way that he looks and the way that he is. He's
a dick.
Well, Bradley's a dick, so he plays a dick a lot.
It's completely different than who he is. I mean, he's the most warm, wonderful man I've ever known, but he has an ability. He's swagger.
Typecast a little bit in those.
Yeah, he has a swagger. And so I interpreted him through the swagger and was like, I don't really date actors. And I was like, he's just like a dicky actor. And I'm like, and he's like, she's just crazy pants.
She was just like crying between the makeup trailer.
Or the scenes where I'm getting like, like flogged by a tree in my underwear. You know, I mean, it was a crazy situation. But we were at one of those.
You were great in that show, Amy.
She was
Thanks,
incredible.
Kate. We were at one of those Emmy panels, backstage things. You guys, I got to tell you, like, I remember, it still flashes when I bring it up. They do those like individual red carpet pictures when you're at like one of your panel things, because it's not like a big red carpet. It's like, okay, now we're going to take that. And I was up and he was watching me, and I had this weird like feeling. Like I looked over there and I was like, oh, he's cute. Like as if I'd never seen him before or something. And he was looking at me smiling with this sort of sly. And I would be lying if I didn't say I intentionally sat down on the couch next to him backstage, you know, and then we had this very long conversation, and this little movie, we won't talk about work, but I just did this tiny little indie, and basically the end, the sort of romantic resolve, and he's in it with me, and we're in this scene where we have this conversation in the movie that is very much taken from this moment in our life where we just kind of, after thinking, you know, what we thought of each other, we were like talking about how crazy we felt we'd been acting since we got divorced, how insane our personal lives were, how much we missed our kids when we had to share custody, that it was like the most painful experience of our lives, you know, to give the kids over. It was just all this like,
and we were dating totally
wrong.
We had both. I mean, it really is an example of the, you know, it's sort of a corny Zen example of like, we really were both. I was like, I basically said, I have terrible taste in women. Like, do you want to go out with me? And, like, because I just didn't trust myself anymore.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I always talk about how people who've gone through divorce, no matter how justified that divorce might feel, there is always this ember of shame.
Yes.
There is something wrong with you.
You failed.
Like you can't do this very fundamental thing. But if you care, it always makes me laugh because, well, if that's true, then the only way to feel successful in a relationship is to die while you're in it. Do you know what like the bad news is you're dying, but as you go out, you can go, I made it work.
I made it. Well, don't you think too that has to do with when you have children, Bradley? I mean, I know for me to leave my second marriage, it was more about breaking up the unit rather than, because I knew for a long time, this is really not a match. But when you come from a home, especially parents that have been married for 50 years and never.
Mine were married for.
Yeah, there's like no divorce in his family.
Yeah, mine were married for 65 years. I walked in on them making love in their 70s, but I don't want to talk about that.
But I do love to hear that, Bradley.
Divorce.
Yeah, I'm still the only one. And you do feel, I certainly felt coming from that family, that you'd take a bullet for your kids. Why wouldn't you put up with a shitty relationship?
Absolutely.
Not a shitty one, but one that's not.
No, I know. I hear you. That was the, yes.
Well, she brought her sponsor to
our first date. I was in I'm in a 12-step. We talk about it all the time. We're in 12-step programs. So I met him at a 12-step meeting and we went on our coffee date, and my picker, I was so, like you said, I did not trust myself. So I took my sponsor with me because I just didn't trust that he wasn't going to be another kind of psychopath or something. So in the middle of the coffee date, she kind of reached under the table and grabbed my knee and was like, he's okay.
He's a good guy.
And then she left. And then I tried to kiss him.
Sponsor comes over when we make love.
My version of that was that my kid Iris wrote a list of requirements of someone I would date.
Wow.
And
how old was she when she did that?
Like
10, 11?
When we first started.
Younger.
9, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because we've been together 10
and
years.
I nailed it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, did you follow the list? I mean, were you?
I didn't realize it. It was crazy because he asked me out, or I asked him out. It's a little bit murky. In fact, June 11th is 10 years.
Wow.
And because we were invited to, I was invited to a work event, and Jay Duplass, who was on that Transparent, was always my plus one. We just went to all the events together, and he couldn't go. And I was like,
and we're both like,
I'm never dating
I'm a
again. I
monk.
never,
Yeah.
I was really like, it was actually the first time in over 20 years that I'd actually been actually single. Like it was the first, I went from relationship to relationship to relationship to relationship. And I had taken 6 months. I'd made this commitment. I am also in a 12-step program where I worked through like an entire inventory of my sex life. And it was like, I was feeling the happiest I'd ever been by myself. And I was like, I do not want to date anybody. And so I emailed him and
Probably big sigh.
and I said, hey, do you want to go to this, event? A friend of ours, Zachary Drucker, was getting
An award.
And he's like, yeah, I was going to ask you out, but
Yeah, I was like, oh, I can't believe you're doing this. I was going to
That
ask
was after the couch scene, right?
yes.
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 And I was like, oh shit. Now but I kind of was, right? Like it's sort of a lie to say that I wasn't aware that I was opening something up here because we'd had this like flirt on. So anyway, he says yes. And at that event, he puts his hand on my leg and it like lit up like a Christmas tree. I mean, it was just like, he still can do that to me. He touches me and everything just goes, whoa. And it was so funny because I was playing a bisexual.
I have the same, honey. Yes.
I know
I
you
do.
guys, we talk. No, Katey and
We've talked about it.
Yeah, we know we're very lucky to feel
the first
way we
time I kissed
oh yeah,
Amy,
tell that story.
I put my hand on her back and I kissed her and she looked into my eyes and said, maybe I'm not gay.
I said, I guess I'm not
I guess I'm not gay.
And the reason was transparent. I was always making out with women, and there was a lot of fluidity on that show. And I was sort of thinking life would be easier if I could just date women, but I never did.
Are you kidding?
Right.
I
think it'd be so complicated.
I hate men, and I don't hate them, but I was at that like, ugh. And no, I know now it's also not any.
Was there a part of you, Bradley, that was a little disappointed?
I was like, so you're not even open to it? There was a really funny actor showbiz related thing is on Transparent. They would do these sort of improv retreats, and we would do this silent kind of the entire company with the writers there and Pina and the entire cast, these kind of roaming 2-hour Pina Bausch adjacent improvs, wordless improvs. And
somehow Bradley found himself humping me.
Yeah, and I played a character. This was way before we talked. I was playing a character that did not exist in the time the show happened. I was her father's cross-dressing buddy, and for some reason I was humping her like a dog in a park, pretending it was about the work.
I mean, this was pre Me Too,
Yeah.
obviously. We did stuff in that workshop you would never do now because there was no discussion of consent. I certainly did give my consent.
Well, we're actors, right? So,
But it was really
slippery slope.
As if that's a pass.
This was a real slippery slope, but that was early though. That's when we weren't even talking to each other. So really we humped each other before we ever really
I love
connected.
that's your go-to improv animal.
Horny dog park, baby.
That's fantastic.
That's so funny.
One thing on that list was that he had to be 10 years older, and
Which I am.
He's 9 years and 355 days older than me.
Perfect.
He had to have been divorced and have children so that he would know what I'd been through and what I needed.
That's a smart kid.
He had to be more successful than me because I just like that. Although Iris later said maybe that was a mistake. But also the big one, and I put this in the little movie, was that it said he has to like cats and dogs. And I remember going, a lot, I was sort of stereotyping and going, a lot of guys I don't know how love cats, but so that might not be that easy. And I'm over at Bradley's house and I'm meeting the dogs. I went over during a lunch break. He was living very near the house that we shot at for the Pfeffermans in Transparent. And so during lunch, I go over to his house and I meet these incredible dogs that were the loves of our lives till they passed recently. And then this cat walks in and I'm like, who the fuck, who's that? And he's like, oh, that comes from outside. He's like, that's Elton. That's my cat. And I was like, oh my God.
Check.
Oh,
Check.
check. You know, I did that too, where remember how they used to tell us, Amy, to put, your wishes and desires in a little God box.
Yes,
so
yes.
I had come from like just such lame relationships, and I was just hell bent, and I wrote my list, and he checked off boxes. He definitely, but one of the big ones was he had to have a job. I tended to be with people that didn't have a job.
Well, I wouldn't ask her out till I saw her at the meeting, and I was still a struggling writer, and then I got my first gig on the Shield, and that's once I did that, then I was like, so I don't know about your experience, in the struggling artist days, but my only goal was to be able to answer someone in one sentence when they asked what I did. That's all. That was my, and
instead of like manager,
well,
waiter,
I'm doing this,
runner,
but I really want, but to just say,
I stutter on actor because I feel like if you don't know I'm an actor, then I'm not successful enough. Like, because I'm that kind of range where a lot of people don't know me, and it's like I still have a heart. My fantasy is to not have to tell anyone I'm an actor, because then I'm that well known that I don't have to say I'm an actor. So I totally get that. When I was in voiceover for years, and that was how I made my living, I said I was in advertising. I've always had so much shame around not being successful enough to say that I am something.
I wonder if that's why you're on your list. You wanted to have somebody more successful than you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it, becomes a self-esteem thing. It's sort of like, well, you know what I mean? If I'm not feeling enough, at least my partner.
Yeah. I suck off of his esteem. For sure. I mean, sorry.
That's not a euphemism, people.
Ah.
Yeah, I always, my exposure to the 12-step world is with Amy, and it's one of the, I think she was nervous telling me about it, and it is what I love about her most, what it gives her. I envy the community and everything. And the more I'm adjacent to this world, the more I think about how incredibly unhealthy, how success in show business is like a narcotic. And you were just reminding me that, ever since I've been a kid, here in New York, I remember the moment I got first play, and it was like, oh my God, I'm an actor. And my second thought was, what am I going to do when this closes?
Right.
And how I would get a job in a regional theater, and I would know that I had this, kind of self-esteem, for 6 months until the play closed.
Right.
Isn't it a wild way to live? It's wacky.
It's not healthy. It's a roller coaster ride through the land of confidence. I mean, the older I get, the luckier I feel. It's just a really crazy way to live.
It's such a weird world too, because when we met, he was in a little bit of a dip, right? And you're like, you're going around, and people knew who he was, obviously, but it wasn't like people were stopping him on the street. And now we're at this weird height since I've been with him. His kid, Lulu mentioned it to me last night. Like, we are on another level.
Right.
I don't know if it's because Handmaids is like screaming right now, or which is probably part of it. And and
Bradley's in a lot of things.
A lot of things right now. And it's kind of like, oh, he's getting stopped left and right. And it's interesting to go through that too, where you're like, you go one place and they treat you like you're a king, and then you go another place and
they have no idea. Yeah.
But see, I sort of love that. Don't you kind of love that? I mean, that's kind of what I love about 12-step rooms is like, it's just a great equalizer. And I understand Bradley feeling a little bit envious of that way of life, because ultimately, as an actor, if you're getting your self-esteem only when you're working, what a 12-step program provides you is this kind of sense of, I'm okay whether I am or not. Mm-hmm. It's got this spiritual component to it that carries you through.
Well, you have to learn how to generate esteem.
That's what it is, Amy.
Yes, no, he knows. I do feel that.
No, but
I think he gets that through politics and service. I think he does.
Well, service.
That's the
the
esteem.
deal.
That's how we manifest esteem, is by being of service. And can I just say one thing, Bradley? It was a spec West Wing that got me my first writing job.
Oh, wow.
How cool is that?
Wow. That got you on the Shield?
That got me on the Shield. Yep.
Wow. I want to rewatch The Shield. That was a great show.
Do you still have that spec script?
Yeah, I would love
that
to
was
see
back in the days when you would do a spec of another show with your take on it, and so they knew you knew how to imagine story, follow a format. That doesn't happen these days. And now it's about what's your pilot and blah blah blah. But yeah, it was a spec West Wing, and it was about a 7-year-old who brought a gun to school and shot another 7-year-old right down the street from the White House. And so it was a pretty dark West Wing.
Surprising.
But that's what got me my first gig.
Violence? Yeah. That's so weird.
Yeah, there's no motorcycles in the Oval.
Well, the motorcycles came much later.
But it's interesting too. If you're lucky as an actor, you have these. I really envy all of my siblings. I'm sure they look at my life and imagine there are things about my life they envy, but I think of Dave's sense of community. It's just chaos. I'm always like traveling. There's church communities I've been a part of, but it always feels kind of half-assed because suddenly you got to go to Budapest or something.
Well, we're circus folk.
We're like circus people.
Everyone comes over. What do you do? We're
in fact, the most consistent thing in our lives is really that wherever we go, there's some kind of 12-step room, and so we bring it with us, which is kind of really stabilizing for us circus people, is to have some kind of, because I hear you. It's like we're just, in fact, people that don't do what we do, that we have friends with, they just can't even believe we live this way. Like, really? How do you not have consistent,
How can you not know what's happening next week?
Well, if you think moving is one of the top 5 traumas.
Right.
Moved 5 times
this week.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like, we've both been in the last 3 weeks, Toronto, Calgary, LA, New York twice, and just in
Budapest, Toronto. Yeah.
It's been like,
isn't it great though, you guys? I mean, I can't imagine from where I just can't imagine living a life. I feel so privileged to be able to actually do this and be an artist. And it's like, whoa. So great.
Yeah.
I love it. So I want to get into a little bit more because we have this in common. How is it with your stepchildren? How is it combining family? Because when Kurt came into my life, I had 2 little ones. I had an ex-husband that was screaming at him to get out of his house. We had like a whole situation.
It was
where ultimately it was like, we're leaving this house, we are moving so that we don't have to have that. So can you speak to that a little?
We were
so slow about it. I think if Bradley and I were honest, we probably would have been ready to get married at about, a year in, right? Like with full confidence. But we didn't get married until 4 years in because we wanted to. He has 3 children. They are all, I'm going to say, neurotypical and heteronormative, and
wow, these big words.
And I have a non-binary queer kid, and I was worried that there would be some challenges, and there's really never been one.
It's been great.
His kids are great. My kid is great. They've all loved each other. Not one issue in the entire 10 years.
Iris was just here without us, and they were hanging out, which just made us so happy.
We weren't here, and Iris was hanging out with Lulu and all of Lulu's friends up at Barnard, and Lulu's friends were like, "Oh my God, I love Iris. Iris is so cool." And
it's great.
George, who also lives here, his middle son, and Lulu went out to lunch with Iris, and I
love that.
And then my biggest fear was that Bradley's oldest, Francis, was not living in the house when I started dating him, and I didn't really get to know her well. It took a couple of years till she really trusted me. I think she's very protective of her dad, and she was the oldest
and skeptical of his choices, wisely.
And skeptical of his choices, and also was the oldest when they got divorced. I think it was probably the most challenging for her to witness. So she was like, "You're not getting married again. Like, what the fuck are you talking about?" You know?
Oh, yeah, that's probably the more challenging.
Yeah.
That's what I find. It wasn't so much the siblings getting along as like, how are they going to accept the new partner? You know, what's that going to take?
Yeah.
Like Kurt pretty much bought their affection.
Yeah, my whole goal for the first 2 years was I bought him a lot of great shit, and all I did was make him laugh. Anything I could do. Voices, pratfalls, characters, anything I could do to make him laugh.
I mean, Iris immediately loved Bradley and never liked anyone that I dated prior to Bradley.
I've immediately loved Iris.
Accepted Iris and was like, it was not a problem at all.
It's great.
And then his kids, I mean, the first time that Frances told me she loved me, I like cried. Like, I was like, okay. And I knew, because she doesn't give it easily. It's not like, you know, she just says that to everybody. And, you know, but Lulu, and I mean, I would say I really like his kids are great, but I also feel like they really actually genuinely like me and love me. And I felt like that's the biggest gift.
I was always conscious too that I mean, part of the reason that we didn't rush it is I had seen other people get divorced and felt like these kids go through this utterly confusing shattering of the structure of their lives. And if somebody immediately is with someone else, they're forced into this, like, you know, Disneyland tour of, and this is your new family.
Right. Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Happy, like, which I didn't, and our kids were older. I think
they were teenagers.
They were teenagers, so we knew we
That's
didn't.
Tricky. Yeah,
we didn't want to force them to change ways. You know, when they were, you know,
or alliances. Yeah.
I'd tell the story of my first time I met Jackson, my son, and he was 4 years old.
Yeah.
And we decided, all right, you're going to meet the kids. So I go to her house, and I had never been around small children, only around pets. So all of a sudden I see this thing running at me full speed, and I didn't know what to do. And I panicked and I raised my knee, like, you know, when a dog would jump on you, and I caught him in his chest, and he fell, and I knocked the wind at him, and he stood up and he just screamed at the top of his lungs, "I hate you." And turned around and ran the other direction. I just looked at Katie, and it was a pivotal moment. It was like, I should probably just turn and walk away. You know?
Oh my God, that's like not, this is not as bad at all. But the first time Frances's dog became very attached to me when Frances went away to school. And the first time I met Frances, has this great homecoming with her dog,
who she adores,
who's the great love of her life, really.
But she's been away.
And I walk down the stairs, and Izzy jumps into my lap, and this is before, like, hello,
right?
And she goes, "Oh, that's not happening," and pulls the dog back, and then the dog keeps trying to go for me. And I would say for like the first year of our relationship, when Frances would come home, I'm like pushing Izzy away, like
beating the dog.
Just, you know, I'm like leaving the house. I'm like, because I didn't want her to feel that way. But, you know, she wasn't home a lot then. And Izzy had, you know, glommed onto whoever had the warm lap at that.
I love that. Oh, that's not happening.
At that like first meeting, I was like, that's the worst first meeting I could ever have. And I was so scared. Well, my dad had like is on his fourth wife. And I had so I had like multiple.
He's on her right now.
He's on her right now. I hope. But I had a lot of examples of how to be a good step parent. You know what I mean? And I knew what worked and what doesn't work. And, you know, what works, in my opinion, is like, you're not there. They don't have to like you. You know, you are there to really act like you like them, you know, and even if you don't, and to be patient, you know, and not to try to, you know, I mean, you can, I like the idea of trying to get them to like you, that's a lovely effort. But like the idea that I felt like this one wife of my dad's, like I had to she just, I was working for her to like me. And I don't think that's a great position for a kid to be.
No.
No, not at all. That's, it's why we stay. Well, it's definitely why I stayed too long at the fair with the second husband. This is my third, his second, my third. We're not quitters. We don't give up. So let me ask you this. How do you guys, because we all do how do you manage, I'm sure you get this question a lot, sort of work life, do you have that thing, you talk to famous couples and they're like, we have this rule that we're never apart more than 2 weeks. And we have this, do you guys do that? Is that your rule?
Yep.
And and you are able to do it. It's
pretty much stuck to it. Yeah.
Since we articulated that.
Part of it's because my career is kind of beat right now. I don't know.
Oh, Amy, stop with the self-deprecating.
No, I'm just saying it's true. I'm not on a series.
She just made a movie. She just, we're gonna get into you for a second because
you were brilliant on the show that I had to walk away from.
Oh,
that's
Yeah, I saw your dailies and I was.
I had a really good time on that, by the way. That was
I know you and our daughter kind of fell in love, which I love.
Yes, and we got to have lunch recently.
Your daughter's great.
I love your kid. My God, she's so fucking grounded and cool for an actor. I'm like, well, you did something right.
She's acting really well. What she shows, no, she's grounded, but she's, it's hard right now, you guys. Are any of your kids trying to do this?
No,
thank God.
I am telling you, it is not like when we were coming up. It is so.
I don't know how you come up now. I being back here in New York, I was becoming an actor when regional theaters were exploding. Funding for theaters all over the country. I was at the Guthrie. I was at Hartford Stage. There were all these places. You were auditioning all the time. Now these kids, they don't get into an audition room. They're just taping it at home.
And then they hear nothing, no feedback. It's the craziest. You remember you walk into a casting office and you could actually interact and sort of get adjusted and,
and sleep with the casting director.
Yes, sleep with a casting. Right, exactly. Just, nope, not anymore.
Human interaction, which is so essential to why we even like doing what we're doing.
I know.
Yeah, talk about community. There was community in those audition rooms.
There was community. You'd meet the actors outside. You would chat.
John Slattery was always there.
Right.
No, that's fair. Yeah.
You could exchange numbers and become friends. And I don't know how anybody's. Even in voiceover, we would all every day. You'd go to your agency and all the voiceover people would know each other. We'd all hang out in the lobby. We'd talk for a couple of hours while we were waiting to go in. You'd go in. And now everyone's doing it from home. Nobody sees.
There's no summer stock anymore, right? Like that's gone. There's
no.
That
I think the key. I always say to young actors, and it's confirmed by just loving the experience that we got to have because even if it can't come to fruition, generate your own work. And I think actors very often narrow ourselves down to sort of pawns in storytelling. Everybody sort of says, well, I'm a writer. Actors actually have a very ground zero sense of what works. And generating your own work liberates you from the horrible thing about this career, which is the idea of putting your self-esteem on a platter and handing it to a schizophrenic.
Right, exactly. Well, it's so true. But it is a lot of hats you have to wear now. It's like, I will say that to Sarah and, and then she's also a musician and you have to be a marketer. You have to, and then if you're a person that's not really a writer, it's hard to create your own situation. And, but you're right, Bradley, that is kind of the new guideline of what you have to wear a lot of hats.
My son has a friend, Juwan, who's an amazing musician and is like my son, just not a self-promoter. you know? And in order to do music, this is a really talented guy. George was saying, you know, his friend has to be like on TikTok and everything.
Right.
It's another job. Yes.
Yeah.
We were laughing about it. It always made me laugh, like when you see on talk shows, how whenever musicians come out and they'll say things like, "This is the greatest album I have. This is every track on this album." You know, they're always sort of bragging about their work in a way that even vain actors don't. Like, you don't have actors come out going, "This is the greatest performance
I've ever
given."
This is my
Unless you're
greatest.
Timothy Chalamet. No, just kidding.
Uh,
Love to Timothy Chalamet.
Wait, I want to ask if you guys have a rule, because you guys are a very happy couple, and I'm wondering how you keep it with your distance.
Well, we both have different. Well, first of all, he puts me in a lot of things. So, like the last thing we did, I had my little part in it, but it was kind of, it was partly so we could be together, you know, so that we could do that. And we don't.
I think your sister in that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
That's right. You do. You play my sister. And then, you know, like last year I did a job in South Africa. I was gone so long, but part of my deal was that I had to have some extra tickets so they could all come back and forth, you know. So we do. We don't travel as much as actors do so much. So
Right. And if we do, I mean, if I have to, I go someplace for a chunk of time. So
I can come and go.
So then, you know, we can kind of figure out a coming and going.
Move behind there.
Shop. Yeah.
It was hard though when we did a show in Wales that he put me in, and we had our youngest at home, 8, and every 2 weeks, one of us was flying over it was jet lag on steroids, because
coming back home.
That we will not do again.
Yeah.
It was more about her than we were together, but you know, it was a rough balance.
I really fall apart when I'm away from her. You know, no matter how lucky the job is, you know, just, you know, or how nice the temporary apartment or room is, I just walk in there and I think to myself, why am I doing this? Why, you know, why am I, you know, cycling through CNN in a room away from the people I love? And
Don't you think that comes with age? One of the wonderful things about age, where your priorities switch, and it's kind
That's
of like
what we always talk about. We're like,
Yeah.
there's limited time, and
Yeah.
it didn't used to feel like that. And I'm like, I don't want to waste my time. I also just met him late in my life, you know, which at the time was like this great story for people. Like, oh, you can find them, and then it's like, yeah, but that also means that you're very aware of the
Of
limited
time.
time that you have to.
And also, don't you think you get to a point? Well, I know I'm at a point where like I don't need to be any more famous. I mean, I just like to keep working.
He says that all the time.
I'm
Oh,
like,
God,
no
no
more.
more.
I'm fine. You know.
Good, we're good. Yeah. But I spent the last year and a half. I mean, I got a couple of jobs. Thank you to your husband, one of them. But I also and I was editing remotely, so I was very creatively fulfilled. But I followed him around basically. I mean, I would go to Budapest, and then I would go to Toronto, and then I would go to New York, and you know, it was the way that we kept our sanity was and I was able to keep, you know, doing that. In fact, we just canceled. I was going to go to Calgary this week because we were going to go to Banff, and it was like sometimes we're trying to do too much, you know. It was like that was just as much as I don't want to go whatever this next chunk of time which will be less than 2 weeks, it turns out. But you know, it's like, hey, you know, we all need to just also get some rest and not you know, not worry about it too much.
There's definitely a sense of having been at a point of utter despair about relationships. When you find one that works later in life, like you really want to take care of it.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
In a way, you're much more responsible than you would have been, you know, before you realized that it wasn't a baseball game, it's a hockey game, and there's a clock.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's
100%.
also, I think, to a certain degree, there's a sense of limited time, but you know, after 20, 30, 40 years, you're like, oh, okay. And
What?
but
What are you talking about?
meaning that you value it in a way, not because it's limited time. There's just a different perspective. There's just a different a different lens you see it through in terms of the time of it all. Where if we had been, when we were in our 20s, we would have a different lens.
It's a more self-centered time, actually.
Yeah, I was so much more ambitious back then. I would have done anything for work.
Look.
And now I'm sort of like, I love work. I love what I do. I mean, I just actually had an audition this week, and I finally was like, I always say I hate auditions, but I was like, right now, that's my opportunity to actually work. That's what I'm getting to do. And instead of resisting it, I was like, how can I enjoy this? And so I still love it, but I'm also just, your priorities when you age, they just shift, know?
And I know it doesn't matter how lucky you are in show business. If you're not in a relationship that's working, you're miserable.
Oh, absolutely. And don't you think that's the benefit of having walked through one or two, three of those, so that you do get to one? I mean, like, you realize that this too shall pass, that this little bump in the road is not such a major bump. And I think that that's the benefit of hindsight, of what you've learned from going through the rockiest of times. And, makes you kind of, I don't know. I feel like I love my husband more. We're in a good patch.
Yeah.
We're in such a good patch.
I love him more than I ever have.
Oh, I love that.
No, when the women are obedient, it's amazing.
And scene.
You are talking to, look at and Amy is, I mean, I don't even put the word obedient to Amy at all.
No.
I would feel like, no, I think there might be some pushback. I think that's probably the spark.
Like Angie.
Amy is very sparky.
I am sparky, but I am oddly
obedient.
A deep amount of respect. I'm not subservient. I'm not obedient. But I also I really deeply, I find his intelligence and his humor and who he is as a person so remarkable that I do not spend too much time bitching about stuff that is completely insignificant, because I realize this.
Do you think he's smarter than you, Amy?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah, me too.
He's way smarter than I am. He knows that. He says he does and he's lying. I mean, he's smart.
I have the same.
But that's some dad stuff though too. Like
you think?
Everything, what you were just describing in terms of, appreciation and respect, I think you had some role model energy around that too, as did you in terms of.
I was terrified of my dad, but I did think he was an amazing artist, like all that stuff. Amy's considering that.
My dad's sense of humor is much more, it's less cerebral than his sense of humor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So he's kind of in that way. I don't even know. I've always had a thing for but my dad was very, very funny and is very, very funny. And I definitely grew up with a thing for wit. And I felt like when I met this guy, first of all, though, at the beginning, his wit can have edge. And I didn't know. I remember once, we were at the gym. We talk about this all the time, but because it was so funny, my interpretation of it. But some book was brought up, and I was like, who? What is it? And he's like, have you ever read a book? And it just kind of came out like this very, and I had to go in the bathroom and cry because I thought.
And I was like, oh God,
I don't even know if I told you at the time. I was like, I didn't even want him to know how much. But we talked about it later because I was like, I guess I do have a little bit of a fear that I'm not smart enough because my mom and my sister were so brilliant when I was growing up. He definitely thinks, it's not like he doesn't respect my intelligence. But his wit at the beginning, I would feel the edge of it and wonder if he was going to be mean because I didn't want to be with a mean person.
Right, yeah.
And then the more I got to know him, I was like, oh no, he's hysterical and he's funny. And I really understood all of it. And I think that's, there's always that joke or that cliche that women always say the number one thing that they need in a man is a sense of humor.
Oh,
and
100%.
I definitely fall into that category. And
I think the most, I just feel like even if there's a difficult time or a difficult moment, I just immediately felt the safety of knowing, and I think it's connected to the 12-step.
Yeah, that stuff. Whole I'll take my part and I'll apologize.
I never feel like they're even while as jarring, as something
we hate fighting. We do, and it's the most painful.
As jarring as something can be, I always have confidence that we want to solve it more than we want to be right.
Absolutely. I always say that about Kurt. Like sometimes he's just like being a dick, but he'll like say it within 10 minutes, like, oh man, I'm really being a dick. And there's such an accountability to that, because I've been with people that won't take their part into consideration.
Right.
And that is, really, really, really difficult.
Just to travel back to you, Amy, I will say that I started out as an actor. I was an acting teacher. I'm very cognizant of process and how that informs me as a writer. And, there's been a handful of actors that I've worked with who, ask the right questions that make my writing better. And you are definitely one of those actors. So,
thanks.
And, and that was a role that was half an idea until you came on. And then that's absolutely true.
I'm actually like a little teary saying that. Thank you.
Oh, that's so, that's great.
I obviously so admire you and your work. And he always gets mad at me because he thinks I don't give myself any credit.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Bradley. I'm with you.
That means a lot to me. Thank you.
No.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's funny because I don't feel like working together was a joy for us because I trust her. It's so funny hearing. I mean, I grew up with an intellectual. My older brother was better in school, and I was kind of the, shallow, actor boy. So. It's always weird to me that I get perceived as
smart.
Yeah.
But to be a good actor, you really, I tell young actors all the time, you have to read a lot of books. I really think that it's like, in order to do what you do, there is a certain intelligence that's involved in all of that.
I think really good actors are
smart.
But
I was very, very close to my mom. I remember being in the car and my mom was saying it wasn't about me. It was about this guy, Bill Marshall, who was incredibly funny. And my mom said, she said, I think you have to be brilliant to be funny.
Yeah.
And I realized that that's like an aspiration.
I so agree with that.
That from a young age, I was sort of, wanting to be.
So Kurt's brilliant because he is that way. I'm basically only funny if you give me something funny to say.
But here's the thing that
I'm sort of funny. I don't know.
My favorite thing in the world, and I do it as much as I can, as often as I can, is to make her laugh. Yeah. I just to hear her laugh and to know that I got her to laugh. And she gets mad at me sometimes because I'll use it to get out of being a dick. And, she'll be mad at me and I'll just keep saying things until she starts laughing and then I know I'm off the hook. But
it's like bribing the kids.
Yeah, it is. It's like,
yeah.
But
I hope it's okay for me to say this, but we've been hanging out with his ex-wife this week and she is so funny.
Ugh.
And it sort of makes me jealous. Like, I'm like,
you're pretty funny, Amy.
Well, but yes, thank you. But she's like, and she makes him laugh in this very sort of belly way. He knows this is like the one thing that he's like, Amy, everyone's good. Like, just, but I'm like,
let her have it. Let her have it.
I want to make you laugh like that. But it's good. I think this might be patriarchal and stereotypical, but I think it also, men really love to make women laugh. I think when you get a good, hearty laugh out of a woman,
absolutely,
I think that makes a guy feel really good. I think it's probably more important to him that I think he's funny, but he says I'm funny.
I've never heard that before. That was one of the problems with my second marriage. My husband was so not funny, and he just was trying so hard to be funny, and I was like, I just couldn't fake it. I was like, I guess.
You can fake an orgasm, but you can't fake it.
Totally.
Yeah, an irony deficiency is an incurable disease.
Yeah,
I totally agree. I completely agree.
Yes.
So anyway, what is your pick? Oh, good, we get to eat pie.
All right, so now is when you get to
This
talk
is my
about,
fave,
you get
I
to
think.
talk about work, but we also begin with telling us why this pie was chosen. And now you eat pie.
I chose this pie.
He chose it. I didn't even get to choose.
And
that's a perfect analogy for our.
Yes, I realized that I didn't know, and she's very opinionated about tastes, textures.
Yeah, I am really
smells.
It's getting worse as I get
temperatures.
older. Yeah, very.
But
particular.
I have always been passionate about cherry pie.
And I love cherry pie.
And it turned out.
But we didn't know this about each other. You guys brought us closer.
You guys made it happen.
Wow, it's my favorite too.
Yeah.
This is such a cherry pie. So does it have a childhood component, Bradley? Is it something that as a kid you had?
Yes, there was in the cafeteria at Wayne Elementary School when I was in elementary school. There was cherry pie that I was obsessed with.
Oh, so this brings back a nostalgic.
Wow.
Yes,
love that.
This is from Little Pie.
I prefer pie to cake.
Always, yes.
Because we've had a few guests that hate pie, and then we'll adjust a little bit to get them a cake.
No.
I'm not that into cookies, which upsets Amy.
That upsets me.
Yeah, I'm a cookie too. He's not either.
I think there's a social component to pie that, like cake is celebratory, but pie is when you sit down and you fucking get to know somebody. You have a piece of pie. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow. I never thought about it that way.
And what's interesting is the fun part of a cake is on the outside, which is kind of shallow. But the fun part of the pie is on the inside, which is deep.
Bradley, that is such a good analogy for our podcast.
Yeah.
Because we want to talk about the inside of the pie, not the outside of the pie. Wow.
There you go.
We're going to steal it.
Yeah.
So this is also the part where you guys get to talk about anything you might want to promote. I know that right now The Handmaid's Tale is coming towards its finale. I have to self-profess I've watched every season, but I haven't watched this one yet because I like to save them and binge them.
Something really big happened this week, but I don't know if you would want a spoiler on
No,
here.
well, we were told, and I don't think... know.
She watches them all. She waits for them all to drop.
And then I watched them all, but our producer did fill us in on what happened this week. And I don't know if...
To your listeners, if you don't want a spoiler, don't listen to this part.
Okay, if you don't want a spoiler, as Amy said, don't listen to this.
I want to know about the little indie movie you did.
Well, first let's talk Bradley about what he's got going on.
I'll just put it this way. This has been a fascinating character to play. Very weird time to be doing this show, obviously. And I was really worried about where this guy was going to end up, to the point where I talked to the showrunners and I was like, look, there's something, there's this psychology of submission that is part of being an actor. You have to be chosen and, you're grateful to be there and everything. But I really cared about this guy and I was really worried where he was going to end up. And I went to the writers and I said to them, I said, before we do this year, they were just starting the writer's room. And I have been a very lucky person in terms of, I'm not the guy up in the writer's room sort of advocating for this storyline or that, or I've been very lucky in that way. But I was like, you know what? I'm 65. This part has been a fascinating thing to play. I really care about where this ends up. And they said, come over. Yalin Chang and Eric Tuckman. Bruce was handing it off, and Bruce said, yeah, go over and talk to them. And I went over, and they said one sentence about where it ended up, and I was like, great. I love it.
You're amazing on that show, by the way, Bradley. Just have to.
Is.
And they, it feels, I haven't watched this season yet. It was very sad to say, but it was a great creative situation.
So, yes.
And I love those people, and it was hard to say goodbye.
So it was fulfilling. The ending was fulfilling for you as an arc.
Like dead on. Good. Great.
Oh, great. Love that. Everybody watch The Handmaid's Tale. It's very apropos.
I think they are.
Yeah.
So Amy, let's talk about, which I haven't seen it yet.
Really
I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see it. But Amy, first of all, let me just tease it 1 second, Amy, because I heard you talking about this for a couple of years, maybe 3 years, 2 years, whatever. And the fact, I just want to say that you made it through the process. You never stopped. You continued. It's just unbelievably admirable. And I feel that, it is such a great example for an actor that, first of all, I'm not surprised you're also a writer, because I know you to be very upfront and center with communicating. So I'm not surprised. Is that a way of saying kind of chatty sometimes? So I know that, and I am so I wasn't surprised. But anyway, tell us.
I actually found out I could write a little bit when I turned 40, and I did a little stand-up about my divorce. Just make this a long story short, someone was like, you need to write about your divorce because it was very funny. My partner was quite old and grumpy, and my ex's partner was really like loving and a life coach, and it was a very funny scenario at the time. And I ended up like selling a show actually to FX at the time called Angry MILF about my divorce, and I wrote this piece, but then I ended up getting Transparent. Nothing I'd ever written. I've sold 2 scripts, nothing, and I've had a 3rd project during COVID, but nothing's been made, right? And I'd never actually gotten anything made. And it was something that I was always scared to get a green light anyway, because I really didn't know how to do what I was proposing to do. I don't know how to run a show. I didn't know. It was like I was going way too beyond whenever the deal would not happen, I was grateful. I was like, oh, thank God, because I don't know what I'm doing. But this one, for some reason, even through all my fear, which was intense, because I was trying to hold on to all 3 things. I wanted to write it, direct it, and star in it. And I was terrified to do all 3 things, but when I would get quiet and listen to myself, it kept saying, you are going to do all 3 things. But I was really scared. We had a deal where I was going to have like $3 million, which for this project at that time for me was a lot of money. And we were about to go into prep, and I'd been like auditioning people, and the money went away entirely. And that was about 3 years ago, I guess. And basically I've spent the last few years like scraping, finding a way to make this. And my friend Jay Duplass, the Duplass brothers are really good at making ultra low budget movies, like SAG, under $1 million. And he was like, you can do this. And I basically, I can't say how much we made it for. I'll just say it was under $1 million. And it was in a very short period of time.
Happened quick.
It happened incredibly quickly.
11 days shooting.
11-day shoot?
Yep.
Holy cow, I cannot wait to see it. I have not seen it yet.
We want you to see it
with people. But yeah, so it's called For Worse. It's a romantic comedy. It's about, the time after my divorce and how I felt like I regressed. And it was something that I just knew was really fun and was hopeful. And so I felt like it would be fun to make and to give to people, because a lot of people, I'm sure you get this too, Katey, like people want to see a happy person after a divorce, or like that there's love,
there's life after.
Right.
Yes.
Life after rough changes and bad relationships. And so this is a story of that, and being like incredibly vulnerable in that process. So anyway, we got into South by Southwest. It was like a huge deal for us.
Great.
Bradley's one of the producers. He totally helped me punch it up. He's hysterically funny. So did the actors in it. I have like Ken Marino, who's just hysterical, and we had Simon Helberg and
great. Yeah.
Nico Haraga is the other lead guy. I have Gabby Hoffman in it. Really great cast. A lot of people improvising and being really wonderful. So some of the humor I wrote, and some of the humor was gifted to me.
But it works.
It's fun. So now we're on this like festival tour.
Oh, okay.
And we won the festival audience award in Wisconsin, and then in Lower East Side, New York. So I thought that was such a cool, like,
so great.
That's fantastic.
Those are completely different audience.
That's different tastes.
That felt really cool. And then we're going to Bentonville this summer. We're still working out, there's
distribution.
Offers, but we have not settled.
We haven't finished.
We're not. It's not like there's a.
Yeah.
I love that you're doing it.
That's
the
fantastic.
Business part of it together is what it sounds like. If Bradley's producing,
He's really supportive. I directed him in something that he loved so much. It was for Funny or Die, and it's called.
You should watch it. It's
Bradley Whitford, Emotional Stuntman, or Emotional Stuntman Bradley Whitford, and it's a mockumentary.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
I play me, arrogant, and more arrogant version of me.
Where do we watch that?
Yeah.
It's go on like
Funny or Die. Watch the actors.
On the Funny or Die. Okay, right. Okay.
Watch the actors.
It's a 10-minute. There's a 5-minute version. There's a 10-minute version.
But you don't want actors to sprain their souls, so you bring in the emotional stuntman.
And it's like it's him in like green with dots on his face, and he
crying, and
we put him into like all the classic scenes you've seen on camera.
Silence of the Lambs.
It's like, you thought that was that's not him. Or you're watching.
Yeah, Hopkins couldn't get there.
Couldn't get there.
It's really funny, and he had so much fun. And I think I earned his trust that I could direct him, that he'd let me direct him. But I don't have to do much.
I got this, Tony. I got it.
Yeah.
Go take a rest.
He does like.
It'll make you laugh.
It'll make.
I love that.
He gets put in Get Out. He gets put in The Room. As the little boy.
Yeah, I'm the boy in The Room.
Like
on Tom Cruise.
He's got this like wig on. He's Tom Cruise and
Magnolia. Like crying.
He's like,
I think we're gonna be watching that.
That's fantastic.
That's
great. Are you like Old Yeller? Are you just?
Yeah, you could. We didn't put him in as an animal. That would have been brilliant.
Oh, that would have been great.
That would have been fucking brilliant.
Oh God.
So Amy, tell us where can people find your movie yet? We don't know yet.
Yeah,
it's in festivals right now.
It's in festivals right now. We're going to do a screening in LA that you guys will come
good.
to.
Yes, I
can't wait. And my great hope, obviously, it's so funny because we got to talk about it on Stephen Colbert. All these producers of these shows love it.
The producers love it.
They loved the movie, so they're helping us talk about it. But I'm like, when people go, well, where can we see it? I'm like, we don't know yet. But we'll figure it out.
How about any how about any kind of charitable things that you guys want to promote? Do you guys do that kind of stuff? I know that Bradley, you're extremely political. I do know that. And
yeah, one thing I'm very proud of in my family that has to do with sort of Handmaids. My dad was not a pinko lefty actor. He was a World War II vet who, worked his way up at an insurance company. But I'm really proud of the fact that he was the president of Planned Parenthood in Dane County, which is Madison. He didn't talk. It was just something he did because he loved his daughters and had grown up in a time when when women were dying because they didn't have access to health care. It is Planned Parenthood needs our support now. The bill going through is intentionally cutting their funding. This statistic blows my mind. Last year, so it's more now, but when 14 states. Now 19 states have banned access to abortion care. When only 14, there were 64,000 pregnant rape victims. 64,000 pregnant rape victims in the United States without access to fundamental health care. And, these are people who are raped by their drunk uncle. It's literally a Handmaid's episode.
How can people show their support for Planned Parenthood? What's a good way?
They can support Planned Parenthood locally. There are both local chapters and nationally.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure their website has donate links as well.
So yes, this is the time to be of service.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
That's one that matters.
They also are involved in trans healthcare too, so it's also very pro LGBTQIA, which I don't think everyone associates with Planned Parenthood.
Right.
Speaking of, like the Point Foundation, which trans people in this country right now are being targeted in a way that is absolutely despicable and horrifying.
Absolutely.
Talk about Handmaids.
And Point Foundation's always been dedicated to helping trans youth and giving educational grants. And if you're looking to support that directly, I think that's a really great organization.
All of these things are fundamental to the growth of fascism, misogyny, and immigration. Combined with sexual anxiety. And, Trump came down the elevator and said, those Mexicans, those brown people, they're rapists.
Right.
It's right out of the fascist coloring book, and it's happening now.
Yeah.
And we have to stand up for immigrants. I get very frustrated with the people in the Democratic Party saying, because they're falling into this frame of, well, we can't be so woke. when a vulnerable trans community is being used cynically as a political football. And
Yeah,
it's
and they
disgusting.
don't. I guess the
Disgusting.
idea that it's not going to come back as it moves backwards, right? We lost Roe v. Wade. Now you can't have your own sex on your how you choose your sex on your passport. If they think it's not going to keep moving backwards to them, they're out of their minds.
Right.
Yeah.
It doesn't move forward once that if you don't stop it, it continues to infringe on more and more people's rights. So it's not something to give up because it's on the periphery. It's something to hold, like civil rights movements have to move forward,
Right.
or they're moving backwards.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's a fun, and ironically, the trans community to me is an expression of a incredibly fundamental American value.
Absolutely.
Liberty,
Freedom of speech.
happiness.
Why does it?
How does it infringe?
Why do pronouns? What is the joke is like the Pope literally just changed his name overnight, and nobody worries about it.
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Right.
Well, now he's got a new name because he's the Pope, and it's like, yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that hard on you. It's not.
Right. Nobody's
I think
suffering.
it's a bunch of guys who couldn't get laid in high school who are now in shitty relationships, who are destroying the world.
Yes.
Amen, brother.
And
Yes, I think that's
they're disgruntled, sexually frustrated white guys.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
And on that note,
Yes.
first of all, I want to say that this was maybe my favorite podcast.
Yeah, this has been so fun.
And I
Really?
want Bradley, I want you and I to be friends.
Yes. Yeah,
I would love
we
to.
should have
Okay.
a double.
Yeah.
We should have a double date. I would love it. That
Oh.
would be so fantastic. I mean, we're just about to be true empty nesters for the first time. We've been raising children for 30 years. So now, as unsocial as we tend to be, we're not a super social. We are opening up our social our muscle. We are trying to work,
Do you like boxing, Bradley?
yeah,
I do.
Yeah, we do
Don't
fight
box.
we do fight nights.
where we watch boxing.
In fact, I bought her anniversary gift is I bought her tickets to the Canelo Terrence Crawford fight in Vegas. That's our
I
anniversary
saw
gift.
both
go.
Tyson
I wanna go
Holyfield
to-
fights.
I'd
I was
love to.
there.
I would love to go to Vegas.
I was there when he bit the ear.
When you bit the ear, holy shit.
Well, we have a fight night at the house.
Yeah, if you guys are
people
in
come over, we
town,
watch fights.
Yeah, we do it
So
at
we-
least once a month.
Do you like baseball?
Here's the thing.
I like to go.
love to play baseball. I love to play basketball. I love to play football. Football I can watch. Boxing is the only sport I actually can watch.
I get it.
Yeah.
And I love the sports themselves, but I'm not an active participant in terms of being a fan of.
I like to go to the Dodger Stadium and have the snacks.
We'll take you.
That's what I was saying. We have
Okay,
tickets.
we would love to go and
It's
eat.
fun to just sit and eat snacks and
Yeah.
be outside.
Yeah.
We do. I sang the
huge-
national anthem once for the Dodger game.
You did?
Yes, it was one of the more terrifying things I'd done because there's so much feedback, right? So you're starting singing and then you hear yourself what you just did, and it was really actually the scarier one was the Laker game. I did it at a Laker game too with absolutely no vibrato, no feedback. It's just a dead
but
room.
they didn't ask you to sing it. You just stood up and started singing.
No,
Yeah.
come on. They asked me. At one point, I was being asked to do those things.
Doesn't count.
Anyway, that's my Dodger Stadium story.
But
Hot
no,
dogs
I love
and
that.
singing
Love
the
that.
national
And we'll
anthem.
invite you to fight night.
Yes.
Great.
You guys, it's so awesome to
Yeah,
have you
so
here.
lovely.
Thank
Lovely
you.
to get Amy. I know you. I've known you a bit. Bradley, it's so great getting to know you a little bit.
I mean, tell them to wait
Too.
a second.
Hang on.
Wait, don't go.
Hold it. We have
What's
to
she
show you
doing? Oh boy.
Come on in.
Are we seeing an animal or a child?
It better be a dog.
It's got to, oh my God.
This is Francis. This is my friends Katie
Hi,
and Kurt.
Francis.
Katie,
Hi.
Bradley's daughter. No, this is an older daughter.
Older dog.
Older daughter. Well, congratulations anyway.
Yeah, but that's their dog. My baby.
This is
my
Lady.
goodness.
Oh, this is so
You're
sweet, you guys.
We'd bring in our dog, but he'd take up the whole room.
Yeah, we have 3 dogs, but one of them weighs more than me.
He's
So
145 pounds.
We're obsessed with this little angel.
love that.
Hey,
That's a beauty, guys.
Stinky piglet.
He's a stinky pig.
Stinky pig. Oh, they are. We've had the Frenchie, right?
Yeah.
We've had
Little
Frenchies.
mangled
Yeah.
Frenchie. One of her ears is gone because somebody took it and she was a rescue.
Oh,
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, she's
so
just
sweet.
awesome.